What's going on, guys? This is VinylicPuma, back with another Borderlands 2 video, and today I figured I could go over what I think is the best character or class for taking on raid bosses in mostly solo but also co-op scenarios. Now, before we start, I think it's worth mentioning that all of the raid bosses can be soloable or taken on in co-op settings with pretty much any character. So if you've already reached maximum level on a given character and you would like to take on a certain raid boss, you should at least try it with that character first before looking into trying to use another character or class. With that said, there is definitely one character in particular that really excels at taking on most of the raid bosses in the game, and if you know who that is, you should definitely leave a like on this video and a comment below on why you think they are the best. While who it is likely pretty obvious to many longtime Borderlands players, I think this subject is still worth discussing for many newer Borderlands players. Plus, this is useful information for anyone that wants to do a bunch of raid boss farming, since knowing what character is best suited to the task will make your farming more efficient and enjoyable. But with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and start by discussing what in my opinion makes a good character to take on raid bosses, go over some of Borderlands 2's player characters and how they fit into that, and then discuss how the best character I picked matches up with all 10 of Borderlands 2's raid bosses. Now, if you ask me, and when it comes to picking a good raider or a character for taking on raid bosses, I think you should look for 3 things in particular. First, you're going to want a character that is capable of high vertical damage potential, which to me means that you're going to want a character that can achieve high damage output pretty easily without the need of some kind of momentum-based skill. As an example, equipping a B shield which provides a flat damage increase is a great way of improving your vertical damage potential, while taking advantage of a skill like Axton's Metal Storm or maybe Salvador's no-kill like Overkill would be an example of a more momentum-based damage potential, as both skills rely on defeating enemies to best utilize their effects. The reason this is important is because a lot of Borderlands 2's raid boss fights will frequently feature situations where you can't always defeat an enemy to gain damage bonuses. So you'll have to rely on something like the B shield or some of your character's skills to get high damage output in these more momentum-based skills' absence. This isn't to say that skills like Metal Storm or no-kill like Overkill are bad for raid bossing, as in fact, they can be extremely useful in short bursts, but you are going to want to be able to deal a bunch of damage in their absence. And ideally, you're going to want to achieve this vertical damage potential in the absence of the B shield as well, since the B makes you a lot weaker defensively. Which brings us to our second thing you should look for, which is high durability / survivability. Having high survivability / durability is extremely important for taking on raid bosses, as raid bosses tend to hit really hard and can easily health gate you and subsequently put you into fight for your life, which can be nearly impossible to get out of. So, characters that have skills or strategies that tend to make them good at tanking damage are vital. Fortunately, all characters can take advantage of passive weapon effects to achieve passive healing with the Grog Nozzle or other Moxie weapons to quickly recover a lot of their health in more tense situations. But if you can, you're also going to want to take advantage of any great defensive-based skills your character might have. Plus, and if you can do that while also maintaining some high vertical damage output, that is especially ideal and even key to making a lot of the raid boss fights easier. Finally, we have our third thing to look out for when looking for a good character for raiding, and that is the ease of learning and executing the strategy in question to take a particular raid boss down. Like I said earlier on towards the beginning of this video, you can solo any raid boss successfully on any character. The key, however, is how easy is it to learn how to defeat a particular raid boss with that character, and how easy is it to execute that strategy repeatedly with a high success rate. After all, and like I just said, you can solo any raid boss with fantastic results on any character, but if the strategy isn't easily repeatable or is difficult to learn, then it's not necessarily practical. Especially if you're trying to farm these raid bosses for their Seraph, Pearlescent, or even legendary loot. But to quickly recap everything I just went over, you're going to want a character with high vertical damage potential, a character that's got or can achieve good durability or survivability, and you're going to want a character that's got strategies for taking raid bosses on that are both easy to learn and execute. With this all in mind, it's about time we talk about how each character fits into each of these three things to look out for. As far as high vertical damage output is concerned, you're usually going to want a character with an overpowered offensive-based skill, which I would say there are really only 4 characters that have something like that. You of course have Krieg with his Bloodsplosion skill, Zero with his Boar skill, Gage with her Anarchy skill, and Salvador with his Money Shot skill. Of these 4, Bloodsplosion usually requires some amount of momentum in that you're relying on overkill damage, and you need weaker enemies in order to cascade it to beat the raid boss. Zero's Boar can be powerful enough that the level of the weapon itself doesn't even matter, though you will need a bunch of enemies for your initial bullet to pass through, or enemies with overlapping hitboxes to get the most out of this, which when it comes to raid bosses, you really only have Hyperius where you can do that reliably. So I would say that really leaves us with Gage's Anarchy, which you can pre-stack to achieve really high gun damage bonus at the expense of accuracy, and Salvador's Money Shot, which yields high damage bonus on the last shot fired from a given weapon's magazine. Of these two, Salvador's Money Shot tends to be the most desirable, since you're retaining your accuracy while also getting a huge damage increase. When this skill gets combined with certain item and skill combos like the Inconceivable skill and Rough Rider Shield combo, Money Shot's power can be amplified as it's technically possible to get Money Shot chains, which yields massive amounts of damage and by extension, really good DPS. Pair this with the right weapons and the damage you can achieve should make short work of most mobs, and can be highly effective against many raid bosses. On top of all of that though, Salvador also has some good momentum-based skills too, as no kill like Overkill can stack with Money Shot, which can further increase and improve your overall damage. As for the other 2 characters, which are Maya and Axton, you usually have to equip a B-Shield with these 2 to keep up damage-wise. And even then, you're still relying on the B-Shield, which makes you a lot weaker defensively and makes you more reliant on faster shield recharge and better shield recharge delay to maintain the damage buff that the B provides. So in general, and when it comes to what character has the best vertical damage potential, I'd have to say that it's Salvador, thanks in large part to Money Shot and how it can be combined with the Inconceivable skill and Rough Rider Shield. However, and at this point, it's probably about time we talk about characters that have the best durability/survivability. One of the best examples of a high durability character is Axton thanks to his Grit skill, which essentially gives the player a certain percentage chance to ignore damage that would normally put them into fight for life, as well as regenerate 50% of the player's maximum health. While this skill is chance-based and not always 100% reliable, Grit is quite powerful and is definitely one of the best defensive-based skills in the game, and in my opinion, sort of counteracts the defensive prowess you lose from having to use the B-Shield to boost your damage. Additionally, Axton's turrets can acquire the Phalanx Shield, which will allow you to potentially block Terramorphous and any other regular Black Hole or Rift Thresher Singularity ability, in addition to also being able to block Hyperius's Nova attack. Otherwise, most characters in addition to Axton tend to rely on using Moxie weapons to enhance their survivability through passive healing with the Grog Nozzle. All you have to do is simply ensure that whatever bullets you fire haven't made contact, or grenades you've thrown haven't exploded, and then simply switch to the Grog Nozzle to heal off of whatever damage is dealt once the bullets or grenades end up dealing damage. Interestingly, Axton in some ways may have the most potential in this area as well, since you can spec for expertise to very quickly swap to the Grog Nozzle. However, it's really Salvador that has the overall upper hand here, since Gunzerking lets you dual-wield 2 weapons at once, more easily transferring the passive effects between both. All you have to do is wield the Grog Nozzle in your left or offhand, and any bullets you fire from the right hand and grenades you throw can potentially be healed from. The best part about this is that you can combine this with Salvador's high vertical damage potential to get an amazing offensive potential while retaining some very impressive survivability. In the end, and when it comes to the character with the best survivability/durability, I don't know if Salvador is like the #1 best, but due to how he can more easily take advantage of passive weapon effects via gunzerking, he's definitely a top contender. This of course brings us to our section which involves characters that have the easiest strategies to learn as well as the best potential success rate. Now, I bet absolutely no one is going to guess who I'm going to pick here, but it's Salvador. For the vast majority of raid bosses, all you really have to do with Salvador is make sure you're properly spec'd, which in most cases usually involves the same gear and skill setup, and then all you have to do is start gunzerking, throw some bouncing Betty grenades to slag the raid boss, and then just pretty much let her rip. While your tactics will change here and there depending on the raid boss's potential attacks, as you're probably going to want to stay near the wall while fighting Terramorphous or make sure not to shoot the fire dragon while it's landed, but for the most part, taking on most of the raid bosses involving Salvador tends to be pretty easy due to his great offensive and defensive potential, which makes learning strategies much easier and ensures a pretty high success rate. So all around, Salvador tends to be pretty good at taking on most of the game's raid bosses and fits all three of the criteria that I outlined earlier. He's easy to use, he's capable of massive damage output with minimal effort, and he can soak up crap tons of damage. So it stands to reason that if you want to have the easiest time when taking on raid bosses, your best bet will be to use Salvador. With that in mind, let's go ahead and briefly talk about some of Salvador's matchups to each of the various raid bosses themselves. Salvador tends to do fairly well against all of the game's raid bosses, with a lot of the easier ones like Pyropete, Cromrax, and Vermivorous being pretty easy to take on. For Pyropete and Cromrax, it's really just a matter of starting to gunzerk with either a Herald plus Grog or Interfacer plus Grog combo, while being sure to remove Pyropete's helmet with the Trespasser. As for Vermivorous, the hardest part is getting a group of people to actually spawn him, but once you do, you can usually just keep firing until he goes down. The same thing goes for the Ancient Dragons of Destruction as well as Terramorphous. All you have to do with the dragons is be sure to take out Helianth and or Boost first, since the former can actually heal the other 3 dragons, while Boost can increase their levels, making them stronger and potentially more prone to resisting the player's attacks. After that, Brood and Incinerator should go down pretty easily, so long as you make sure to not attack Incinerator once he's landed and closed his wings. As for Terramorphous, all you really have to do here is stay close to the back wall, throw a bouncing Betty grenade to ensure he stays slagged like you should do for most of the other raid bosses, and then just try to aim for his eyes. Provided you do this while occasionally taking out some of his tentacles to recover grenade ammo or even other ammo, I think you'll find that he's not especially hard either, even though Terramorphous is actually fairly difficult to take down on some of the other characters. The oddballs tend to be fairly easy on everyone, including Salvador, though Salvador has some advantages over the other characters. For Deciduous, you're going to want to get a really nice crit-based pistol like the Lady Fist, and then just try to take him out from afar like you would with any other character. Fortunately, you can passive crit boost with the Lady Fist with, say, a Grog Nozzle to more easily take him down. As for Master Gi, who requires you to run over the pools of acid that spawn from the sandworms that are killed, Salvador has the advantage here in that he can gunzerk and counteract some of the debuffs, which makes taking out Master Gi a little bit easier. As for our last 2 raid bosses, which are Hyperius and Veracitus, I'd say they both tend to be Salvador's toughest matchups. The problem with Hyperius is that he emits a shield after his first Nova, and you have to defeat each of the 5 loaders to a point to get them to start restoring themselves in order to remove Hyperius's shield. You can easily find yourself in a situation where you're firing at one of the loaders, while the other recovers, which can put you in a constant loop of trying to beat each one. As for Veracitus, he's just hard to take down even with really good gear like a Fire Interfacer and Grog Nozzle. For this reason, I recommend if you want to farm both of these bosses fairly efficiently, I'd recommend you take advantage of the passive weapon effects that you can get from comboing a Bibbernal and an Ahab. While some may consider this to be cheating, I would ultimately say that it's pretty fair given the circumstances. If you don't want to use Pimperhab, you can always just fight Verastus normally by using a Trespasser to remove Nugawatu's shield, and then blast away using the Interfacer and Grognozzle. While for Hyperius, you can always just pull off a boar kill with 0. In the end, guys, I think you'll all agree that the best character for taking on raid bosses in the vast majority of cases is going to be Salvador. After all, you're getting crazy offensive and damage potential due to things like Money Shot and how Salvador can more easily take advantage of passive weapon effects by Gunzerking. There are some cases where, say, Zero fares better against Hyperius, but for the most part, I think you'll find that Salvador, more often than not, tends to be the superior choice. So if you're looking to farm a bunch of raid bosses, it might be a good idea to level up Salvador, as he can farm the vast majority of them fairly easily with minimal difficulty. Otherwise, guys, I think that's going to wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, definitely feel free to leave a like. Click the bell so you can be notified when I upload more videos, and as always, and again, thank you all so much for supporting this channel. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.